Do you ever wonder why there are volcanoes, mountains, and mountain ranges?
Are you curious on how they are formed?
Well, in this video, we will talk about the plate tectonics and explain what is it all about. We will also identify the three plate boundaries alongside with the land formation of each boundary.
At the end of the video, we will also reflect about the importance of studying plate tectonics related to earthquakes and other phenomena. For your plate tectonics activity, we will have an Oreo activity. Oreo is going to be used in this activity to model the three types of movement found in plate boundaries.
Therefore, if you have a piece of Oreo, you can join in this activity. It is easy and relaxing. We're going to model the divergent, convergent, and transform boundaries, and it allows you to see the effects of each type of movement.
Starting with the divergent boundary, we're going to slide the two pieces of halves that broke apart, which gently pushing down using your hand on both sides. The direction it moves away from each other, this can create river lakes and volcanoes. Then you can see it forms like divergent boundary.
Convergent boundary means to collide when pushing the two pieces towards each other. One plate descends below the other plates, creating a subduction zone. And lastly, the transform boundary, where the two pieces of Oreo will break and move opposite to direction or slip past to each other, so that the scrapping of two pieces of Oreo or two plates causes earthquakes. First, let me introduce to you the tectonic plate theory. This theory suggests that Earth's lithosphere is broken up into tectonic plates that collide, divide, and slide past one another. Driven by convection in the mantle and gravity, movement at the plate boundaries causes seismic wave, or also known as earthquakes.
Pangaea or Pangaea is the name given to the supercontinent that existed during the Paleozoic and Mesozoic eras, before the process of plate tectonics separated each of the component continents into their configuration.
Plate tectonics is a theory that attempts to explain the structure of the Earth's crust, including the distribution of the earthquakes, volcanoes, fold mountains, and rift valleys. It is mainly based on Alfred Wegener's theory of continental drift and Harry Hess's theory of seafloor spreading.
In our mind to ask the question, who created the plate tectonics? Further ado, let's know who is. Alfred Wegener suggested in 1912 that around 300 million years ago, all continents were joined together by a single supercontinent called Pangaea. Surrounded by an ocean called Talisay, these continents have since drifted apart from one another. In the year 1880 to 1930, Alfred Wegener, the father of plate tectonics and German meteorologist, he proposed continental drift in 1992, but was ridiculed by fellow scientists. He earned PhD in astronomy at the University of Berlin in 1904, but he spent most of his academic career working in meteorology, because he had always been interested in geophysics and meteorology. He died in Greenland in 1930, while carrying out studies related to glaciation and climate.
Suggested evidences of Alfred Wegener. He suggested several pieces of evidence of continental drifting, the jigsaw puzzle, where the borders of continents seems to complement each other, for example, South America and Africa. Fossil remains are spores of ferns that have been found on all southern continents, but they cannot have crossed a wide ocean. The same is true for fossil evidence of many land species. Rock sequences and geological structures were found to be similar on multiple continents. Oil and coal has been found on Antarctica, meaning that the continent was once located in a different climatic zone with active plant growth. Before we proceed to the types of plate boundaries, let us first define plate boundary. A plate boundary is a border between two or more tectonic plates. There are different types of plate boundary depending on the direction in which the plates are moving and whether the plates are continental or oceanic. The main types of plate boundary are constructive, destructive, and transform.
We define the plate boundaries and we hope you understand well. So let's move to the type of plate tectonic boundaries that form by movement. The first one is the convergent boundary, where two plates colliding into one another. There are three types of convergent boundary. The first one is oceanic continental convergent. Where they collide is called the subduction zone. The oceanic plate subducts around the continental plate because the oceanic plate is heavier, pulling the rest of the plate with it, called slab pull, which leads to a lot of earthquakes. When a plate of ocean crust collides with a plate of continental crust, so the ocean crust is thicker and subducts underneath the continental crust, the magma from the melted oceanic crust rises to the surface, and this results in volcanoes around the boundary. The second one is oceanic convergent. The heavier plate subducts under the lighter plate. It may produce a volcanic island chain, occur when two plates of oceanic crust collide. The older, more dense plate will subduct under the younger plate. As a result, the crust melts and creates an island arc. The third one is continental convergent. Both densities are similar. Edges fold and crumple, forming mountains. Occurs when two planes of continental crust collide. They buckle and thicken. This causes mountains to form. Did you know Mariana Trench is the deepest part of the ocean and the deepest location on Earth, which is 11,034 meters deep?
The second one is a divergent boundary, where two plates move away from each other. It is also known as constructive boundary, so it is formed when two plates are moving apart, creating gaps in the Earth's crust and thereby allowing magma to surface and form a new crust. More than often, magma bursts through the crust, giving rise to volcanoes as the lava cools. Many constructive plate boundaries are mid-oceanic ridges. For example, the fault line between the Eurasian and North American plates. In the rare case that continental plates diverge, land is pulled apart and forms a rift valley. The most famous rift valley is the East African Rift System, where the African plate is split into the Somalian plate and the Nubian plate. And lastly, the third one is the transform fault, where two plates sliding past one another. Transform plate boundaries are formed by plates sliding past each other in opposite directions or at opposite speeds. Transform faults are very prone to earthquakes. Example is the San Andreas Fault that refers to the Pacific Plate and North American Plate. The San Andreas Fault in California is a major transform boundary.
What are the other activities formed when plate boundaries happened? Mountains, volcanoes, and trenches. Mountains are formed by the collision of two continental plates. When two continental plates collide, the edges of the continents fold upward to form large mountain ranges. Volcanoes are formed by the collision of an oceanic plate and a continental plate, or by the collision of two oceanic plates. When an oceanic plate collides with a continental plate, the oceanic plate is subducted under the continental plate, forming a trench. Subduction pushes upward on the edge of the continental plate, causing mountains to form. The subducting oceanic plate melts in the Earth's mantle, and molten rocks arises from volcanoes. When two oceanic plates collide, the older, denser plate is subducted under the younger, less dense plate. The subducted plate melts and molten rocks rises and breaks through the seafloor, producing a string of undersea volcanoes that may in time rise above the ocean's surface.
Second, seafloor spreading. In the process of seafloor spreading, the ocean floor moves away from the mid-ocean ridge, and lava erupts onto the ocean floor to make a new crust. Seafloor spreading occurs at divergent boundaries.
Evidence for plate tectonic theory. Fossils. Some fossils found on continents separated by wide oceans. Rocks. Mountains of the same age and rock type found on continents separated by wide oceans. Pangaea. The continents seem to fit together like puzzle pieces, forming the ancient supercontinent Pangaea.
We have already discussed and described the different types and landmarks of plate tectonics. So now, let's see how important plate tectonics is and the level of our understanding. Plate tectonics. They are responsible for the releasing of carbon dioxide from the crustal rocks, as well as replenishing the continental landmass loss through erosion and weathering. Plate tectonics provides an explanation on what things happened around the Earth. Plate tectonics explain why and where the different landmarks form. And lastly, plate tectonics helps us to understand what causes earthquakes and the different fault forms.
In our daily lives, it is important for us to have knowledge about earthquakes in order to prepare. The boundaries of the Earth's plates, which encompass the entire planet, are important to geologic events. Plate tectonics, the movement of these plates on top of a thick fluid mantle, is what causes the earthquakes and volcanoes.
Before we end, here are the important terminology for our lesson summary. Tectonic plate, a piece of the Earth's lithosphere that rides on the asthenosphere and causes the formation of mountains, volcanoes, mid-ocean ridges, and trenches. Fault, a crack in the Earth's lithosphere, mainly along the plate boundaries, and this is where the earthquake foci are located. Subduction, to be carried under the edge of the adjoining continental or oceanic plate, causing the tensions in the Earth's crust that can produce earthquakes or volcanic eruptions. Trench, a deep V-shaped valley that lies along the bottom of the ocean and is formed by the process of subduction.
Mid-ocean ridge, an underwater mountain chain associated with seafloor spreading. Rift Valley, a valley of new continental crust formed at the center of a divergent boundary between two continental plates. Mountain, the folding or pushing up of continental plates at a convergent boundary. Volcano, an opening in Earth's lithosphere through which molten lava, ash, and gases are ejected. Volcanic island arc, a curved chain of volcanic islands formed by the subduction of an oceanic plate at a convergent boundary.
For your evaluation, make an essay and try to reflect on real-life situations and answer the following questions.